What if I told you that two children could vanish without a trace in broad daylight from their own neighborhood, leaving behind a mystery so baffling that even seasoned investigators are calling it unprecedented? This is the story of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, a case that has captivated the nation and left a community forever changed. But today, we're diving deeper than anyone has gone before, because new evidence has emerged that could finally crack this case wide open. I'm your host, and welcome back to True Crime Seat, where we don't just tell stories, we uncover the lessons that could save lives. If this is your first time here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you won't want to miss what we uncover today. Before we dive in, I need to warn you, this case contains elements that some viewers might find disturbing. But it's precisely these difficult stories that teach us the most about protecting ourselves and our loved ones. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's unravel one of the most perplexing disappearances of our time. Let me introduce you to a family that until March 15th, 2024, seemed to have it all figured out. David Sullivan, 42, was the kind of father every kid deserves. An environmental engineer by day, he was known around Milbrook Ridge for coaching Little League and never missing his kids' school events. His neighbors describe him as the guy who'd drop everything to help you fix a broken fence or jumpstart your car. Sarah Sullivan, 39, was the heart of their home. A freelance graphic designer who worked primarily with local businesses, she had that rare ability to balance a successful career with being completely present for her children. Sarah was the mom who organized neighborhood block parties and always had extra snacks for the kids who'd inevitably end up at their house after school. But the real stars of this story are Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Lilly, 8 years old, was what teachers call an old soul. She had this incredible empathy that drew both children and adults to her. She was the kid who'd befriend the shy student in class, who'd make sure no one sat alone at lunch. Lilly loved reading mystery books, a detail that becomes heartbreakingly ironic given what would happen to her. Jack, 6 years old, was pure energy wrapped in curiosity. He was the kid who asked why about everything, who collected rocks and knew the names of every dinosaur. Jack had this infectious laugh that could brighten anyone's day, and he absolutely worshipped his big sister. Here's what makes this case so particularly devastating. If you were to design the perfect family, the Sullivans would be your blueprint. They did everything right. They had safety protocols. They knew their neighbors. They were involved in their community. They represent every parent's worst nightmare, because they prove that sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. The Sullivans lived in Milbrook Ridge, Colorado, and this detail is crucial to understanding how this case unfolded. Milbrook Ridge isn't just any suburb. It's the kind of place people move to specifically for the safety and community feel. With a population of just 12,000, it's the type of town where everyone knows everyone, where kids still ride their bikes to school, and where the biggest crime story in recent memory was a string of mailbox vandalism 2 years ago. The neighborhood where the Sullivans lived epitomized small-town America. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained sidewalks, houses with front porches where neighbors actually sit and wave to each other. It's a place where parents let their kids play outside until the streetlights come on, where the ice cream truck still makes its rounds every summer evening. This context is absolutely critical, because it explains why what happened to Lilly and Jack was so shocking, and why the community's response was so intense. This wasn't supposed to happen here. This was everyone's safe haven. But here's the first lesson we need to talk about. Predators don't just operate in dark alleys and dangerous neighborhoods. They often target places exactly like Milbrook Ridge, places where trust is high and vigilance might be lower. Before we continue, I want you to think about your own community. What safety measures do you have in place? What conversations have you had with your children? Keep these questions in mind as we dive deeper into this story. March 15th, 2024, started like any other Friday in the Sullivan household. Sarah was up first, as always, starting the coffee and preparing lunchboxes. David was getting ready for work, reviewing some project plans over breakfast. The morning routine was so normal, so perfectly ordinary, that it would later haunt everyone involved in the investigation. Lilly came downstairs, wearing her favorite purple sweater, the one with the sparkly star on the front. She was excited because her class was starting a new book that day, and she'd already read ahead 3 chapters. Jack bounded down the stairs in his dinosaur pajamas, immediately launching into a detailed explanation of why Triceratops were better than T-Rex. The family ate breakfast together, something they did every morning without fail. Sarah made pancakes shaped like animals, a Friday tradition that Jack absolutely loved. David helped Lily practice her spelling words one more time before school. At 7:45 a.m., David kissed his family goodbye and headed to work. This would be the last time he saw his children. At 8:15 a.m., Sarah walked Lily and Jack to Milbrook Elementary, just 4 blocks from their house. She chatted with other parents at drop-off, made plans for a coffee date with her friend Lisa, and watched her children disappear into the school building with their colorful backpacks bouncing. The school day proceeded normally. Lily participated enthusiastically in her reading group. Jack impressed his teacher by correctly identifying all the shapes during math time. Both children ate their lunches. Lily traded her apple slices for Jack's crackers, as they did every day. At 2:45 p.m., both children were marked present for final attendance. At 3:15 p.m., they joined the line of students being dismissed for the day. And then, somewhere between the school doors and their home 4 blocks away, Lily and Jack Sullivan vanished. Sarah Sullivan was expecting her children home by 3:45 p.m. As always, she had snacks ready, apple slices and string cheese, and she'd prepared to help Jack with his reading homework while Lily worked on her book report. By 4:05 p.m., Sarah felt the first flutter of concern. The kids were usually so punctual, so responsible about coming straight home. She texted her neighbor, Maria Rodriguez, whose daughter walked the same route. "Hey Maria, did you see Lily and Jack on the way home today?" Maria's response came quickly. "No, haven't seen them. Emma came home alone today, said she didn't see them at dismissal." At 4:15 p.m., Sarah called the school. The secretary confirmed that both children had been present for final attendance and had left with the other students at dismissal. This is where Sarah made the decision that probably saved precious time in the investigation. Instead of waiting and hoping, she immediately began making calls. She called David first. He left work immediately, his heart already racing. She called 3 other parents, whose children walked the same route. None had seen Lily and Jack. She called the Rodriguez family, the Johnsons, and the Millers, all neighbors along the route between school and home. No one had seen the children. By 4:30 p.m., Sarah was walking the route between school and home, calling her children's names. David met her halfway, and together they retraced every possible path the kids might have taken. At 4:45 p.m., exactly 90 minutes after the children should have been home, David called 911. Here's what makes this timeline so crucial. The Sullivans didn't wait. They didn't follow the old advice about waiting 24 hours to report missing persons. They trusted their instincts, and their quick action meant that the initial investigation began while the trail was still warm. The 911 call was heartbreaking. David's voice trying to stay calm while his world was falling apart. "My children didn't come home from school. They're 8 and 6 years old. They always come straight home. Something's wrong." The dispatcher, Lisa Chen, had been on the job for 8 years and had never handled a case involving missing children. She immediately elevated the call to priority status and dispatched 2 units to the Sullivan home. Officers Martinez and Thompson arrived at 5:02 p.m. They would later say that the moment they saw Sarah and David Sullivan, they knew this wasn't a case of kids who had simply lost track of time. What happened next restored faith in human nature. Even in the midst of every parent's worst nightmare, within 2 hours of the 911 call, Milbrook Ridge had mobilized like never before. The police immediately implemented what's called a rapid response protocol for missing children, a system where every second counts and every resource is deployed immediately. Detective Amanda Foster was assigned as lead investigator. With 15 years of experience and specialized training in crimes against children, she understood that the first 24 hours would be absolutely critical. But while law enforcement was organizing their systematic search, something beautiful was happening organically in the community. Maria Rodriguez, the neighbor Sarah had first texted, began calling every parent she knew. Within an hour, dozens of families were walking the streets, calling Lily and Jack's names. Tom Wilson, who owned the hardware store downtown, closed his shop early and brought industrial flashlights and reflective vests for the volunteers. The local churches opened their doors as command centers. The high school football team postponed practice and joined the search. By 7:30 p.m., over 200 volunteers were systematically searching every inch of Milbrook Ridge. Let me paint you a picture of what this looked like. Neighbors who had barely spoken before were coordinating search grids. Teenagers were walking elderly residents' dogs so the owners could join the search. The local pizza shops delivered food to the search volunteers free of charge. The elementary school principal, Mrs. Janet Hayes, opened the school building so investigators could interview teachers and review security footage. She also coordinated with parents to ensure that other children were being cared for while their parents searched. But here's what makes this search even more remarkable. It was organized and methodical. This wasn't just people wandering around randomly. Detective Foster worked with community leaders to create search zones, establish check-in times, and ensure that every possible location was covered systematically. The search included every house and yard in a 2-mile radius, all local businesses and their surrounding areas, the nearby Milbrook Creek and surrounding wooded areas, construction sites and abandoned buildings, storm drains and utility areas. K-9 units arrived from neighboring counties. The dogs picked up the children's scent along their normal route home from school. But the trail went cold at the intersection of Maple Street and Oak Avenue, just 2 blocks from their house. This detail would prove to be crucial. As night fell, the community refused to give up. Floodlights were brought in. The search continued. At 11:30 p.m., Detective Foster made the difficult decision to suspend the active search until daylight, but she promised the assembled volunteers that the investigation would continue around the clock. Sarah and David Sullivan stood before the crowd of exhausted searchers, their voices breaking as they thanked everyone. Sarah's words would be replayed on news broadcasts across the nation. Please don't give up on our babies. They're out there somewhere, and they need us to keep looking. Day 2 of the investigation brought resources that Milbrook Ridge had never seen before. The FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team arrived at 6 a.m. Agent Rebecca Torres, a 12-year veteran specializing in child abduction cases, took command of the federal response while working closely with Detective Foster. The media attention was already intense. By morning, news vans lined the streets around the Sullivan home. The story was being covered by national networks, and the hashtag Find Lilly and Jack was trending on social media. But behind the scenes, investigators were following protocols that most people never see. Every registered sex offender within a 50-mile radius was located and questioned. This process, while necessary, was emotionally exhausting for investigators, who were also parents themselves. The children's electronic devices were analyzed. Lilly had a basic cell phone for emergencies, but it had been turned off since school dismissal. Jack didn't have a phone. School security footage was reviewed frame by frame. The last confirmed sighting of Lilly and Jack was at 3:16 p.m., leaving the school building with other students. Traffic cameras along their route home were checked, but Milbrook Ridge was a small town with limited surveillance infrastructure. Only 2 cameras captured anything useful, and they showed children walking in the distance, too far away to definitively identify Lilly and Jack. Here's where the investigation took its first major turn. Witness interviews began revealing inconsistencies. Several parents reported seeing children, matching Lilly and Jack's description, walking together after school, but the times and locations didn't match up. Some witnesses placed them on Oak Street at 3:30 p.m. Others insisted they'd seen them on Elm Street at the same time. Agent Torres explained to the family that this is actually normal in missing person cases. People want to help so desperately that they sometimes convince themselves they've seen something that might not have actually happened, or their memories get influenced by emotion and media coverage. But there was one witness whose account stood out. Margaret Chen, an 82-year-old woman who lived on Oak Street, insisted she had seen 2 children matching Lilly and Jack's description, getting into a dark-colored vehicle around 3:45 p.m. She was watering her garden at the time and had a clear view of the street. Mrs. Chen's account was detailed and consistent across multiple interviews. She described the children as appearing to know the person in the vehicle. They didn't seem frightened or resistant. The vehicle was a dark SUV, possibly black or dark blue, with what appeared to be local license plates. This testimony changed everything. The case was now being treated as a potential abduction rather than children who had simply wandered off or gotten lost. On day 4 of the investigation, the case took turns that no one saw coming. The first shock came from an unexpected source, David Sullivan's work computer. During routine investigation procedures, FBI computer forensics specialists discovered that David had been researching child safety and home security systems extensively in the weeks before the disappearance. While this initially seemed normal for a concerned parent, the timing and intensity of his searches raised questions. The searches included topics like how to protect children from strangers, best home security systems for families, child tracking devices and GPS watches, warning signs of predators in communities. Agent Torres had to make one of the most difficult decisions in law enforcement. She had to inform Sarah Sullivan that her husband was being looked at as a potential person of interest. The conversation was heartbreaking. Sarah's reaction, complete shock and immediate fierce defense of her husband, actually supported David's innocence in the investigators' minds. But they had to follow every lead. David voluntarily submitted to polygraph tests, provided detailed accounts of his whereabouts, and gave investigators access to every aspect of his life. His alibi was rock solid. He had been in meetings with colleagues and had dozens of witnesses to account for his time. The computer searches, it turned out, had a heartbreaking explanation. David had noticed a suspicious man at Jack's soccer practice 3 weeks before the disappearance. The man had been watching the children intently and had approached Jack to ask questions. David had reported this to local police, but the man was never located. David's internet searches were the actions of a father who was trying to protect his children from a threat he sensed but couldn't identify. This revelation led to the second shocking turn. There had been other incidents in Milbrook Ridge that hadn't been connected. Detective Foster began reviewing reports from the past 6 months and discovered a pattern that sent chills through the investigation team. A man in a dark SUV had been reported asking children for directions near 3 different schools in the area. 2 other families had reported a stranger approaching their children at parks. A jogger had reported seeing a man watching children from his parked vehicle on 4 separate occasions. None of these incidents had been reported as connected, because they occurred in different locations and involved different witnesses. But when mapped together, they formed a clear pattern of someone scouting the area and targeting children. The FBI immediately expanded their investigation to include these related incidents. They also issued a public alert, asking anyone who had seen suspicious behavior around children to contact authorities immediately. The community response was overwhelming. The tip line received over 400 calls in the first 24 hours after the alert. Most tips were well-intentioned but not helpful, people reporting normal interactions or misidentifying innocent activities as suspicious. But buried in those 400 calls were pieces of information that would prove crucial. Call 1347 came from Janet Morrison, a substitute teacher who had worked at several schools in the area. She reported that a man matching the description had approached her after school at Milbrook Elementary 2 weeks before the Sullivan children disappeared. He had asked detailed questions about dismissal procedures and whether children walked home alone. Janet had felt uncomfortable about the interaction but hadn't reported it, because the man seemed polite and claimed to be considering enrolling his child in the school. Call 381 came from gas station owner Mike Rodriguez. His security camera had captured footage of a dark SUV with a distinctive dent in the rear bumper, stopping at his station multiple times over the past month. The timing of these stops corresponded with school dismissal times at nearby elementary schools. These weren't coincidences. This was evidence of planning, of surveillance, of predatory behavior that had been escalating toward exactly what happened to Lilly and Jack. By the end of the first week, the Lilly and Jack Sullivan case had become a national obsession. The story had everything that captures public attention: innocent children, a picture-perfect family, a safe community torn apart, and a mystery with more questions than answers. Nancy Grace devoted entire shows to the case. Dr. Phil brought in experts to analyze the investigation. Social media was flooded with theories, prayers, and unfortunately conspiracy theories that made the family's suffering even worse. The media attention brought both benefits and complications to the investigation. On the positive side, the national coverage generated thousands of tips from across the country. People came forward with information about suspicious individuals, potential sightings, and related cases from other states. The coverage also brought in additional resources. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children assigned a full team to the case. Private investigators offered their services pro bono. Technology companies provided advanced search equipment. But the media attention also brought challenges that the Sullivan family was not prepared for. Reporters camped outside their home 24/7. Every time Sarah or David left the house, they were surrounded by cameras and microphones. Well-meaning but misguided amateur investigators began showing up in Milbrook Ridge, conducting their own investigations and interfering with official law enforcement efforts. Social media became a double-edged sword. While Find Lilly and Jack raised awareness, it also became a platform for cruel speculation about the family. Some people suggested that David and Sarah were involved in their children's disappearance. Others spread false information about the investigation. The most painful part for the Sullivan family was the constant reliving of their trauma. Every interview, every news segment, every social media post forced them to confront again and again that their children were missing. Sarah later described this period as living in a fishbowl, while your heart is breaking. But there was one media development that would prove crucial to the case. America's Most Wanted decided to feature the Sullivan case, and they worked closely with the FBI to release information that hadn't been made public before. The show revealed the enhanced description of the suspect vehicle, a dark blue or black SUV, possibly a Honda Pilot or Toyota Highlander, with a distinctive dent in the rear bumper and what appeared to be a temporary license plate or dealer tag. They also released a composite sketch based on the various witness descriptions. The sketch showed a man in his 30s or 40s, average height and build, with dark hair and glasses. The night the America's Most Wanted episode aired, the tip line received over 1,200 calls. Calls on 1 or 156 would change everything. 3 weeks into the investigation, the forensic evidence that investigators had been desperately hoping for finally emerged. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A traffic camera 15 miles outside of Milbrook Ridge that investigators had initially overlooked because it seemed too far from the children's normal routes. The camera was positioned at a truck stop off Highway 36, and investigators were reviewing footage from the day of the disappearance when they spotted something that made their hearts race. At 4:43 p.m. on March 15th, just over an hour after Lilly and Jack were last seen at school, the camera captured a dark SUV, matching their suspect vehicle description, pulling into the truck stop. The license plate was clearly visible, and it was indeed a temporary dealer tag. But what made this footage absolutely crucial was what happened next. The vehicle parked away from other cars, and the driver, a man matching their composite sketch, spent nearly 20 minutes at the location. He made several phone calls, purchased items from the convenience store, and appeared to be nervous or agitated. Most importantly, when he returned to his vehicle, investigators could see what appeared to be movement in the back seat area, though the tinted windows made it impossible to see clearly. The FBI's technical team enhanced the footage using advanced software. While they couldn't definitively identify faces, they could confirm that there were small figures in the back seat of the vehicle that matched the size and general appearance of children. The license plate led them to Thompson Motors, a used car dealership 45 miles away. The temporary tag had been issued for a test drive of a 2019 Honda Pilot. The man who had taken the test drive had provided false identification, but dealership security cameras had captured clear footage of the suspect, and the salesperson remembered him well. Because of his unusual questions about the vehicle's cargo space and whether the back windows were tinted enough for privacy, the suspect had paid cash for a week-long rental of the vehicle, claiming he needed time to secure financing. He had never returned the car. This was the break investigators had been praying for. They now had clear images of their suspect, a definitive timeline, and evidence that strongly suggested Lilly and Jack had been in the vehicle. The FBI issued a nationwide BOLO, "Be on the lookout" alert for both the suspect and the vehicle. Every law enforcement agency in the country received the photos and vehicle description. But the most significant development came from the enhanced analysis of Margaret Chen's witness statement. Forensic audio specialists had been analyzing the 911 calls and witness interviews, and they discovered something that Mrs. Chen herself hadn't initially remembered clearly. When she saw the children get into the vehicle, she had heard the man call out to them. Using audio enhancement technology, investigators were able to determine that he had called them by name. This meant that Lilly and Jack knew their abductor, or at least he knew them well enough to gain their trust by using their names. While investigators were making progress with evidence and leads, the human toll of the case was becoming increasingly visible. Sarah Sullivan had lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. She wasn't sleeping, barely eating, and spent every waking moment either searching for her children or coordinating with investigators. David had taken indefinite leave from work and was struggling with intense guilt. He kept replaying every decision, every moment, wondering what he could have done differently to protect his children. The extended family rallied around them, but even their support couldn't fill the devastating void left by Lilly and Jack's absence. Sarah's mother, Patricia Williams, moved in to help manage the household and coordinate with media requests. David's brother, Michael Sullivan, took charge of organizing volunteer search efforts. The community of Milbrook Ridge was also showing signs of strain. Parents were no longer allowing their children to walk to school alone. Code playgrounds that were once filled with laughter sat empty. The ice cream truck stopped making its routes because no children were outside to buy treats. Local therapists reported a significant increase in anxiety-related appointments from both children and adults. The elementary school brought in counselors to help students process their fears and confusion about their missing classmates. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect was watching other children in the community try to understand why their friends had disappeared. Emma Rodriguez, who had been Lily's best friend, drew pictures every day showing Lilly and Jack coming home. She left toys and snacks on their front porch for when they get back. Tommy Wilson, Jack's soccer teammate, asked his parents every night if the bad man might take him too. The ripple effects of the case extended far beyond the Sullivan family. Every parent in Milbrook Ridge was living with a new level of fear and vigilance that changed the fundamental nature of their community. Yet, in the midst of all this pain, something remarkable was happening. The community was growing stronger in some ways, more connected, more willing to look out for each other's children. Neighbors who had barely spoken before were now coordinating carpools and playdates. Parents were organizing safety workshops and self-defense classes for children. The local police department started a volunteer neighborhood watch program that attracted over 100 participants. It was as if the community had decided that if they couldn't bring Lilly and Jack home, they would at least make sure nothing like this ever happened again. As of today, 42 days after Lilly and Jack Sullivan disappeared, the case remains active and ongoing. The suspect vehicle, the 2019 Honda Pilot, with the distinctive rear bumper damage, was found abandoned in a parking garage in Denver, Colorado, 2 weeks after the children's disappearance. Forensic analysis confirmed the presence of DNA evidence consistent with both children, that the suspect was nowhere to be found. The man who rented the vehicle has been identified as Robert James Mitchell, a 38-year-old, with a history of child endangerment charges in 3 different states. Mitchell had been living under false identities and moving frequently to avoid detection by law enforcement. Mitchell is now the subject of a federal manhunt. He's been added to the FBI's most wanted list, and there's a $100,000 reward for information leading to his capture and the safe return of Lilly and Jack. The investigation has expanded to include potential connections to other missing children cases across the western United States. Investigators believe Mitchell may have been responsible for at least 3 other abductions over the past 2 years. Recent developments include confirmed sightings of Mitchell in Utah and Nevada following the Colorado incident, evidence linking him to suspicious activities near schools in 4 other states, discovery of a storage unit rented under one of his false identities, containing children's clothing and toys that don't belong to Lilly and Jack. The FBI believes that Mitchell is skilled at evading capture and has likely changed his appearance and identity again. They also believe that he may be holding the children in a remote location while he plans his next move. David and Sarah Sullivan continue to work tirelessly with investigators and have become advocates for missing children nationwide. They've established the Lilly and Jack Foundation, which provides resources for families of missing children and funds advanced search technologies. The community of Milbrook Ridge has never stopped searching. Every weekend, volunteers still organize search parties in new areas. The elementary school has planted a garden in Lilly and Jack's honor, and students tend it daily while waiting for their friends to come home. This case has taught us painful but crucial lessons about child safety in our modern world. First, the most important lesson: trust your instincts as a parent. Sarah and David Sullivan didn't wait to report their children missing because they knew their children's routines and behaviors. Their quick action provided investigators with the best possible chance of success. Second, predators often target communities that feel safe. Mitchell specifically chose Milbrook Ridge because it was the type of place where children had more freedom and parents might have less vigilance. Safety isn't about living in fear, it's about maintaining awareness even in environments that feel secure. Third, children need to understand that people who know their names aren't automatically safe. The fact that Mitchell knew Lilly and Jack's names suggests he had been watching them and gathering information. We need to teach children that a stranger who knows personal information about them is actually more dangerous, not less. Fourth, community response matters enormously. The massive mobilization in Milbrook Ridge provided investigators with witnesses, volunteers, and resources that they never would have had otherwise. In cases like this, every pair of eyes and every piece of information could be the key to bringing children home. Fifth, the importance of updated safety protocols. Many of our child safety rules were developed for a different era. We need to have conversations with children about situations like someone claiming to have information about their family, someone who seems to know them but whom they don't recognize, and the difference between helping an adult who asks for help and going somewhere with that adult. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: we cannot protect our children by avoiding the world, but we can protect them by preparing them for it. The Sullivan case reminds us that bad things can happen anywhere to anyone, at any time, but it also shows us the power of community, the dedication of law enforcement, and the strength of families who refuse to give up hope. If you're watching this video, you can help bring Lilly and Jack Sullivan home. Robert James Mitchell is still out there, and he may be in your community right now. Take a moment to study his photo carefully. He's approximately 5'8", medium build, with dark hair and brown eyes. He may be wearing glasses and has likely changed his appearance. Mitchell is considered extremely dangerous and should not be approached. If you see anyone matching his description, contact local law enforcement immediately. The FBI tip line for this case is still active: 1-800-CALL-FBI. Any information, no matter how small it might seem, could be the piece that solves this puzzle. You can also help by sharing this video and keeping Lilly and Jack's story in the public eye. The more people who know about this case, the harder it becomes for Mitchell to hide. Consider donating to the Lilly and Jack Foundation, which is working to prevent other families from experiencing this nightmare. Information about the foundation is in the description below. Most importantly, use this case as a conversation starter with the children in your life. Talk to them about safety without frightening them. Teach them to trust their instincts. Help them understand the difference between helpful adults and adults who might want to hurt them. And finally, take a moment to appreciate the children in your life. Hug them a little tighter tonight. Tell them you love them. The Sullivan family's tragedy reminds us that every moment with our children is precious and should never be taken for granted. Lilly and Jack Sullivan are still out there somewhere. Their family believes they're coming home. Their community has never stopped searching, and investigators continue working around the clock to find them. If you have any information about this case, please don't hesitate to contact authorities, and please keep the Sullivan family in your thoughts as they continue this unimaginable journey. Thank you for watching True Crime Seat. If this video helped raise awareness about Lilly and Jack's case, please hit that like button and share it with others. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And remember, we're not just here to tell tales, we're here to learn lessons that could save lives. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop believing that missing children can come home.